So now we've got the beginnings of an economic model to tell stories about the three biggies. I haven't brought up the three biggies for a while, but what are the three things that we hope policymakers are keeping in mind as they look at various policies? Three policy goals. Big, broad, wide-reaching policy goals. What were those? Okay, those were the things: real GDP, inflation, and unemployment. And then let's add a little bit more detail. What about real GDP? What do we want happening? Up. So increase real GDP, which is how we defined economic growth. What about inflation? Low and stable. So we don't want that one necessarily going up. We don't want to get into hyperinflation or other problems. So an increase in, oops, I put the word increase just because it was on my brain. Low and stable inflation. The Federal Reserve is the one that is kind of top dog in that department as far as having discretionary power of how much inflation is, because we learned in Chapter 8 that inflation is a monetary phenomenon. At the end of the day, you just start flooding the market with dollar bills, and lo and behold, eventually prices will go up. There's a strong correlation between prices and the money supply. Last one. Unemployment. Zero? No. Natural rate would probably be ideal. But in general, let's just say low unemployment. And then maybe we'll put in parentheses here the natural rate. The reason I wanted to not just say the natural rate is that you ask 100 economists and you're likely to get 100 different answers on what the natural rate is. We don't really know that. It's kind of hard. We kind of think it's probably between 5 and 6%, but you'll get some economists saying it's 4.5%. So there is some question mark about that. But some sort of unemployment is not only not bad, but it's desirable. We want to have some unemployment because it's the sign of a healthy economy, that we've got some normal job market turnover. Okay, speaking of job market turnover, don't forget that the career fair is going on today. A little side plug. You guys, if you want a job after you get done with it, maybe that doesn't apply to everybody, but if you're thinking about jobs, even if you're a freshman or a sophomore, go up there and look around. Start thinking about what's out there, who's out there, talk to some people, see what the groove is like. And get a feel for that. All right, so here's our policy goals that we hope to keep in mind. Let's walk through an example of an increase in government spending. That's been pretty popular the last 3 years, trying to pull ourselves out of recession. Let's walk through what happens with an increase in government spending. So, for example, suppose the government, I'm going to switch here. Suppose decides to increase its purchases of bombs and locate them within striking distance of, give me a country, any country. North Korea, that's the one I was hoping to hear, because if you guys have been paying attention to the news, we very well might be taking North Korea out here pretty soon. I don't know, he's pretty wild. I just watched an interesting National Geographic documentary on North Korea, so if you guys got Netflix, it says Inside North Korea. Check that one out. It's pretty impressive of what's been going on. I didn't realize it was to that level of dictatorship. Very Nazi Germany-ish feel when you see what's currently going on in North Korea. Not different, but I mean that the whole propaganda thing and signs all over. So, all right. So let's say hypothetically North Korea. All right, so this is going on today. I mean, they just announced on the radio yesterday or the day before that we've set up, we've kind of mobilized some areas to be within striking distance. Okay, so what happens here then in our graph? What are our predictions of that change in policy where we are choosing to increase weapons of mass destruction? What happens? What's shifting? What's moving? Aggregate demand is shifting left or right? Right. So we end up getting a shift to the right. And here's some notation that we'll use maybe to show this. We could put, well, let me first put 81 and 82, because that'll be pretty common. But to kind of help you motivate things, and as you look back and review for the test or homework, you might also say, you know, that this is because G1 has G2 ramped up its amount of weapons to some higher level. And I could put numbers, and you'll see homework problems where suppose the current government level of spending is 100 million on weapons, and now it's 150 million on weapons. And then we'd start to have numbers associated with that. Okay, so we started off at point A. The economy is going to move to point B in the short run. So output would expand out to Y2 if we call the potential here the first starting position. Inflation starts to get some upward pressure by the economy moving up to PL2. Let's just call this 105. So what is the rate of inflation? 5%. So new number minus the old number divided by the old number. 105 minus 100 divided by 100. That's why we use this number. Otherwise, just subtract the two, and it's going to be 5%. Now, all of that was predicated upon something, because the economy could be going to point C. Point C looks awfully tempting. So why did we not move to point C? And we're saying that we moved to point B. What was going on to have the economy move from point A to point B? It was something with supply.
Production.
Not with production. Flip, flip, flip. Back a couple pages. This is like the big deal of understanding this model well enough to pass this class. Well, probably well enough to pass the final. This is a biggie. I'm just trying to emphasize. What's going on along this short-run aggregate supply curve? And I'll ask my students who did not have me for money and banking. What's happening along that short-run aggregate supply curve? Because I made it a big deal to them already in the previous class. So hopefully they're grinning and ready to spew.
So to do with the lag on output and resource prices?
Resource prices, right? So that was one of the things that shifted it. I'm not sure exactly how you read that, but along a stationary short-run aggregate supply curve, we're going to hold resource prices fixed. That's a big deal. That's meaning That means this: when there's 5% inflation, we're not going to give you a 5% pay raise, right? So what happens to the purchasing power of your paycheck? It goes down. You can't buy as much stuff as you used to. That's the big catch here. So I'm going to just kind of motivate that by saying, suppose you were currently earning $10 an hour nominal pay. You now have less purchasing power. You can't buy as much as you used to. Your $10 used to buy $10 worth of stuff. Now it buys something less than $10 worth of stuff because of the 5% pay raise. All right, so let's just say that the economy moves from A to B. North Korea's a bust. It turns out he was a coward after all, and we didn't have to bomb the heck out of him. So what happens from here now that there's this inflation in the economy? What do you guys do at your jobs? What do you tend to eventually say? You go to the store, you're not buying as much stuff, you want a raise. Yeah, you want to ask for a raise, right? If things aren't working, like you do the bottom line, you're running out of money each month, you start to have a request for pay. Maybe not everybody all at once, but we start to ask for pay raises. Once those pay raises kick in, what happens to the short-run aggregate supply curve? It shifts. Which direction? To the left. So as the pay raises kick in, we start to drift up towards C. And in fact, if we were able to get enough of a pay raise to shift the short-run aggregate supply curve to here, how much money are we making in nominal terms? We're making $10 before. How much additional money do I need to be making to be just as well off in terms of purchasing power? 5%. What's my nominal wage that works for that? $10 and a buck would be a 10% raise, right? 50 cents. So $10.50 now leaves you just as well off as you were at point A. So you're at point A and point B, we're back to a long-run equilibrium. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for now and pick up there later.